I'm Math Guy Steve. Let's try solving this equation. Now, when solving quadratic equations or equations that have a degree of 2, the highest power of x is 2, there's plenty of methods. The quadratic formula, factoring. Another method that we can try solving equations like this is completing the square. So let's try just using that method. It's not always the most efficient, but we need to know that tool of completing the square. So let's try it. Now, when completing the square, our goal is to kind of get the x stuff together. And then if I'm using that to solve an equation, the reason I'm getting the x stuff together in kind of a bubble squared is so I can use the square root property of equality. Okay, so let's try doing that. Now first, to get the x stuff by itself, we're going to subtract 5 from both sides here. Okay, so that'll give us 5x squared plus 26x equals negative 5. So just to gather the x stuff. Now, this number in front of the x squared is kind of in the way. Okay, so we also want to get rid of that in completing the square. So let's divide everything by 5. All right, that gives me x squared plus 26 over 5x equals negative 1. Got it. And now my goal again is to get the x stuff in a bubble squared. So I need x something squared, okay? So how we find that number is by taking this number, we call b, and taking that number and dividing by 2, okay? So if I divide that by 2, then this is 26 over 5. Divided by 2, we get positive 13 over 5 is what I'll put in that bubble. All right. And so now, but to compensate for that, that kind of changed the equation really. And so to compensate for that, we'll take this new number 13 over 5, square it, and add it to both sides on the line above in order to not change the equation. Okay, so 13 over 5, if I square that, that's 169 over 5, and so 169 over 25, and so we're adding 169 over 25 to both sides of the equation on the line above, really. Okay, so what does that give me then? Okay, so I get x plus 13 over 5 squared equals, now we need to add these two numbers, okay? So we'll find a common denominator, right? So that's what, negative 25 over 25 plus 169 over 25, okay? So that simplifies to we get x plus 13 over 5 squared equals, combining numerators, now we get 144 over 25. All right. Now the whole reason why we would do that is now that we have this something squared, we can now square root both sides. Now, anytime you put your own square root into an equation, don't forget that plus or minus. Okay, so put my own square root, don't forget the plus or minus. All right. So that gives me x plus 13 over 5 equals plus or minus. And now when I square root a fraction, I can square root the top, square root the bottom. So square root of 144, what's that, just 12? Square root of 25 is 5. Got it. And now getting x by itself is pretty easy. Subtract 13 over 5 from both sides. So that gives me x equals negative 13 over 5 plus or minus 12 over 5. Okay? That's a plus or minus, so we can kind of split up into two separate scenarios where we get negative 13 plus 12 all over 5, which is what? Just negative 1 over 5. And then we get negative 13 minus 12 over 5, which is negative 25 over 5, so negative 5. So those would be my two solutions to this quadratic equation. Now, don't forget, we got our Nike step, our check step. Okay, don't forget to check it. Okay, how do you check it? You plug those back in to the original equation, see if we get a true statement. Okay, let's try it. All right, so we're checking. We plug it back into the original, see if we get a true statement. Let's see if we can do that. Let's see what we get. Okay, so 5 times negative 5 squared plus 26 times negative 5 plus 5. Is that equal to 0? Let's see. Well, that's 5 times 25 minus 130 plus 5. Is that equal to 0? Well, 5 times 25 is 125 minus 130 plus 5. Is that equal to 0? Yep, surely is. That's 0 equals 0. So that one checks. All right, we're good to go. Let's try negative 1/5, see if it checks out. Okay, so that's 5 times negative 1/5 squared plus 26 times negative 1/5 plus 5. Is that equal to 0? Let's see. Okay, negative 1/5 squared is 1/25. So 5 times 1 over 25 minus 26 over 5 plus 5. Is that equal to 0? Well, this simplifies to just 1/5 minus 26 over 5 plus 5. Is that equal to 0? Because that's negative 25 over 5 plus 5. Is that equal to 0? It is. So 0 equals 0. So that one checks as well. Okay. So in solving quadratic equations, there's plenty of methods. Okay, factoring, quadratic formula, but also completing the square is a good tool to have in our toolbox. Okay, all right. So use whatever tool's best for that specific problem. And so at least we know now how to complete the square. Okay. Now always remember,